Today I'm going to show you how to make melodic techno leads from scratch that sound like this. We're going to be covering composition, sound selection, sound design, and to celebrate the release of this video, I am going to drop a free melodic techno leads serum pack containing 21 custom presets designed by myself. Grab that below before you start the video, and with that. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is actually just pick a good sound to compose with. We're going to jump into sound design in the latter half of this video just because it's important to get your composition right first. I'm going to load up Serum onto my lead channel here. And I'm going to go through and load up one of the presets I have in my Nebula Melodic Techno presets folder. It's got a selection of 4 from the main pack at the moment. I'm going to load this one up for now. And I'll just show you the example I'm going to compose over for now. You get the point. So the first thing when you now approach the composition, which is once you've got a good sound, you approach that. Sounds really nice. We're going to go in here and create a new MIDI clip. Now I'm just going to do this for the first 4 bars for now, and we'll just go from there. I'm thinking I'm going to place it sort of at the beginning, just after the beginning of the drop here. This is like a little drop section. Now, I know for the track, we're in the key of F minor, so I'm going to go up here to my scale and change it to F minor up there. This will reflect the scale highlighting here in Ableton, which is pretty helpful. Now, I'm going to start just with what's called a simple triad movement. So what you can see here is we've got F here, which is our root note. I'm going to go down to F2, I think. What I'm going to do is sort of use this 1, 3, 5 of an F minor triad as the main motion of the melodic techno lead, because I find this is the case in a lot of melodic techno tracks where they sort of use like an almost arpeggiated chord as the melody, but not in the same way you would just kind of hold the chord and use an arpeggiator with it, right? To show you what I mean, I'm going to quickly draw in a few notes here. We're actually going to start it probably on the 3, so I'm going to go up to the A flat there. So maybe something like this. And maybe we'll go dun 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 dun, something like that. Maybe something like this. Maybe. Maybe we'll go up to the F. Up here, like sort of an octave jump as well. It's still the same triad. Yeah, and then I want to sort of, it sounds a little boring at the moment, so I'm going to offset it a little bit here. These last 2 notes by a 16th. Backwards. Yeah. Now there's a little bit of groove in there, which is quite nice. But you can see we're only using really the same 3 notes, just in different octaves. To top it all off, I'm going to add in a little, maybe a A flat again or something like that here. Maybe here. No, I think I'll try the C3, and that's why there's a bit of trial and error here. Yeah, that's got that spacey vibe. I'm going to turn it down a couple dB just so it better fits the mix. I do have a bit of sidechain dialed in on it as well by default, just so it pumps with that kick drum. So now that we've got our main triad motion in there, the second step is to write a few cluster movements or cluster motions. This is what I call them. Someone may call them something different, but it's where you start to use some of the other notes in the scale sort of as like little motions around some of the notes. So for example, we have like this little moment in the middle here where we could fill it in with like this D flat. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's all you need. Little short note in there. Just kind of bounces off this C3. Now, I just want to issue a warning here. You don't have to go overcomplicated with this. You can just add 1 or 2 movements in there, and that's enough. Just add the spice you need, right? So for example, another one I could add is maybe right before this A flat. You know what? That would sound really nice as a repeat. I'm going to leave it in there now, but maybe we'll have a simpler version as we sort of begin to expand out the melody. Yeah, but as you can see, it sort of doesn't need a lot more of that. It's just a few little moments there, and I'd probably say this is enough. But to give you an example, you know, you could sort of do it. So you could say go down to the E flat here, something like that. Yeah, that could work, but in this case, I think it becomes a little too busy, so be sparing with that. The key here, I find, is to always come home as well, and that's tip 3 when you're composing. So right now, we're on the 5th at the end of this little phrase or motif. So I'd like to find a way to sort of come back down to the F, or at least closer to the F by the end. Maybe like by the end here. Sort of maybe there. Maybe we could fill this gap in here a little bit. Yeah, I think where we had it was better. So I think I'm gonna go something like this. So like kind of descend 3, 2, 1. And by the way, the reason going back to the F sounds so good is because our bass line up here is in F. So it kind of ties it all together, which is lovely. Let's see how that sounds now. You could even, if you really wanted to make it a bit more spaced out, you could go down to the F there. What I'm going to do is select these 2 notes and sort of use some of our new transform features here at Ableton, just to do something a little more interesting, right? Maybe ornament would be a cool sort of way to do it. Maybe there's a bit of grace notes. The grace notes I find are used all the time in melodic techno leads. It's really, really cool. Sounds like this. Kind of have to make sure that the velocity is a bit higher. Can't really hear it in this one, so we may have to add more. We may have to add the position out a bit as well. And maybe we can go like high pitch or something like that. Ooh, there's something there. I'm going to sort of bring the position in a little bit. Maybe I'll go low, slightly less amount. I think now that we've got a bit more space. Oh, okay, we'll go high actually. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, that just adds a bit of spice to it, right? I really, really like that. Maybe even we'll go 1 amount. Oh no, I think 2 was good. So we'll go back to 2. There we go. Yeah, that's sick. So sometimes these MIDI tools are cool as well. Now, the last compositional tip is to use space. So I've kind of incidentally done this throughout the process, by which this whole 2 bars is occupied with notes. There's nothing really going on here. So if we listen to this just as it is for those first 4 bars, you'll notice something. Pay attention. Especially if we mix this a little lower, it is a bit loud still, you'll notice that the bass line basically takes the space up where the lead was. And that kind of gives the bass line's mids and highs a bit of space to breathe, especially because we have up here a bit of automation on the bass line's cutoff. Right, and now with that dialed in, it sounds good. I'm just going to quickly go in here and fix up the flam a little bit. Maybe get rid of these little notes. I don't think they're really doing a lot. Something like this. Yeah, that sounds cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this phrase. Like I mentioned, I'm leaving this space in here, which is super important for melodic techno. It makes it feel spacey and ethereal and nebulous, I guess. This first repeat, we're going to do a few different things. I'm going to remove that G grace note sort of cluster I was talking about. And then I'm going to just listen to it without it. I'm also going to get rid of the flams in this moment here. And then in this, this second repeat, I'm going to have a little octave jump. And then I'm going to go like a quick little run. Maybe I'll do some other sort of transforming on this just for a little bit of fun. Let's use, not span, we'll use time warp. Not that it's going to do a lot in this case, actually. We might just do, we'll try ornament again. This time I'm going to try, or maybe even arpeggiate. We're going to go arpeggiate down. -12. We're only going to do one step down, so we're not going to have too much craziness going on. We're going to ease back on the rate, make it a little more friendly. We're going to chuck the gate, leave it on 100. We'll go the style. We'll go like pinky up or something. Maybe I'll actually go a bit quicker on the rate, maybe 1/16. This is why these tools are cool, because you don't necessarily get the results you would just go in and do yourself. There we go. This is sounding sick. I really love these little tools. So now we've sort of got the main lead composition dialed in. I would say we could copy and paste this more and have a few more variations throughout the track. Of course, you're welcome to do that. As the bass line changes or something, you can do that too. We're going to dive into the sound design aspect. Now, we're totally fine to leave this lead as is, but for the sake of this video, I just want to go back to the drawing board and show you how you would kind of make a few different types of melodic techno leads from scratch. So we're going to go back to our serum here. We're going to init the preset. It's going to sound pretty basic and boring for now. Very plain. I do have a bit of reverb on this end that I'm going to leave on for now, and I'm going to leave the sidechain on as well. So the first thing you need to know about designing a melodic techno lead is to use analog type waveforms, wavetables. The easiest way to do this in Serum is under the analog tab here. It tends to be based on a lot of saw waves, I find, these types of sounds, but you can obviously use other sort of analog type waveforms. I'm going to use this mini bass one. Potentially I'll make it a little more saw-based. That could sound good, or is it a bit too much? No, we might try something else actually. Yeah. This one's cool. It's got a little bit of squelch to it because like the wavetable position sounds different on different notes. I'm going to bring that up in volume a bit too. It's a bit little bit quiet. Kind of sounds like a filter, which I actually think is really cool. I'm going to layer up a normal sort of more looking, I guess, sine wave from another one, like this basic MCB. Sometimes it's nice to do that octave below or something like that. In this case, I think I'll just have it on the same though. I want this one as well just to be a little bit louder, so I'll just turn it up there. But this is sounding pretty good as a basic starting point. Now, a huge extra piece of the puzzle here is the noise oscillator. We need to layer in some synth noise to make it sort of a bit more like an analog synth. So I'm going to use the default analog sounds in Serum here. I like one of the Juno sort of ones like the J60. I'm going to mellow this out a little more. That's sounding pretty good. I wonder if this will sound better down the octave, actually. Ooh, that actually is the one that should be down the octave. I'll bring this one up a little bit in comparison now. Yeah, that's sounding really, really good. Nice texture there. And so that's like sort of the basics of the sound. Now, one thing you can do is go in and add like a third sub, like a sine wave here or something. I don't think it actually needs it in this case. We may come back to that. It's not a bass, so it's not necessarily essential. Okay, the other thing we can do is potentially add a bit of unison / detune to these sounds. I tend to find lower amounts like 3 and 5 sound good for the more analog type detune effects. I might use this a little bit, but blend it back. You know what? I'm actually not going to use detune in this case. So it sounds still pretty basic for now, but the main sound is there. What we really need to do is to kind of give it a bit of movement with a filter and also tame some of the harsh high end off. I'm going to use envelope 2 to do this, sort of shape the sound as I want. I could sort of use a quick decay like this by bringing the decay down and just simply modulate the cutoff. I'm going to press Shift Alt there just to make it unipolar, bring down the modulation on the ring there. Make sure A, B, and the noise are all going through, although I may take the noise out, we'll see. That's it. Give it a bit of resonance for that like articulation of the cutoff frequency. Makes it sound really analog sometimes if you use just the right amount of resonance, as well as some drive. A bit too much reso. I'm going to make the decay a little longer so it's a bit more smooth sounding. I'm going to add on this main envelope here a bit of release and a little bit of decay here just to give it some extra pluckiness. I'm gonna have to add a bit of release here as well, just because the cutoff is seeming to stay down and we don't want that on those shorter notes. Yeah, that long release really gets that vibe going, right? Sounds sick. We can use the 12 dB per octave, which is sort of a nice analog type one. 18 sometimes sounds pretty good if you want it sounding a little tighter. I think it sounds pretty good there, to be honest. Now, there's a few ways we can add a bit more thickness in detune as well while I think of it. For example, these two oscillators are perfectly on tune by default. We can just detune them a little bit from each other by giving them a little bit of a fine tune difference, which is sometimes nice. Can just make it sound a little thicker. The other thing we can do is use one of our LFOs, generally on a free synced rate, quite slow, to just add a little bit of modulation on the pitch. I'm going to, again, Shift Alt that to make it bipolar this time. And I'm just going to do it on one of them so that one of these is sort of a bit more unstable, creating sort of a more random analog tuning effect, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's nice. I'm also going to see what this whole thing sounds like up the octave. That was it. We needed it up the octave as well. So I just pushed up both oscillators by 1 octave, and that's sounding even better. And so that's a great way to add a bit of thickness. Of course, the unison trick we mentioned before works well, but to add a bit more thickness, I like to use a bit of subtle soft clipping saturation just to drive up and beef it out a bit. But I like to put a tiny bit of hyper before at a low mix amount just to thicken it up as well. Drive it a bit more here. Yeah, that sounds pretty nice, to be honest. I am going to open up the detune just a little bit. That's beautiful. You can obviously use choruses and other types of thickening effects if you like. Open up the low pass filter a bit here, which makes the chorus sound more bright. Use it sparingly. I think it actually adds a nice little something here, to be honest, but I don't want to do it too much because I'm already using quite a few stereo effects. Now, I'm going to chuck this before my distortion just so that beefs that out as well. sounding really good now. And that gives it just a bit of thickness. Another essential, which is tip number 4 for the sound design, is to use delay and reverb, right? So let's chuck both of these on. Now, by default, it can just sound great as is. You can just dial in the wet and dry. Make it kind of sound the way you want it to. Our quarter note delay tends to sound really good on these kind of leads, so I would stick with that. You can use ping pong if you like the stereo bouncing effect as well. I'm going to actually lengthen out the decay of some of these still yet a little more. Open it up on the sustain for the filter. That's nice. I'm going to increase the feedback on the delay just a little bit. This is sounding really good now. Sometimes, whoa, just moved my whole desk. Sometimes it can be good to chuck on mono legato if you like a bit of sliding between the notes, which works for certain types of melodic techno leads. I don't think it's going to work for this particular one, but let's just give it a go. In this case, I don't think it's going to work, so I'm going to leave that off. But if you're making a certain lead that calls for portamento, by all means, you could use that if you like. And then lastly is just to add a bit of movement and post-processing. So for example, a lot of melodic techno leads tend to use like a really fast, unsynced saw type LFO on the volume. So for example, if I go into my matrix here, select LFO2 as the source and map that in the global section to the amplitude, bring up the modulation amount, you'll hear on a fast scale, if I turn it up, actually reduce the modulation amount a little bit. So that's how they get these kind of stuttery movements. Saw waves tend to be a good place to do that. You could do that on the filter cutoff or anything. I'm wanting to be a little more creative here. I'm going to try something a bit different to that. I'm going to try more of a triangle. And maybe with some less modulation so it's more subtle. And a bit slower. Maybe even more subtle. Just gives it that little bit of movement, right? Which is actually quite nice to make it not so consistent. In addition to the slight detune effects we've got on there as well, what I can do is use one of the chaos oscillators in Serum, which is tweakable in the global section here, but we can just use the default settings to go back to the global and modulate the master tune. That's just going to give us a bit of randomness to the actual pitch of each note, which is pretty cool. Too much. Kind of need it on like 1 at most, to be honest. Even then, I'll go to the output slider and bring it down even further just to make it really subtle. Yeah, that gets it analog sounding. That sounds really, really cool. Now, there's a few optional extras you can include here. Some EQ if you need, boost it up, cut some of the lows, boost up the highs, that is. But you don't have to add this. I'm going to potentially extend this decay even more still. Just extend the decay here as well. Yeah, open it up a bit. Can also use multi-band compression here in Serum. Some people do. It sometimes is a bit much though, so I probably won't use it in this case, but if it squashes the sound in the right way, you could use it. Turn it on multi-band, bring up the gain a little bit. In this case, nah. Yeah, I think that sounds good. You know, you can obviously use more post-processing outside of Serum here too. I'm thinking is using the chord device in Ableton, shift it down the octave, layer down the velocity a little bit. I'd probably have to actually, rather than that, because there's no velocity mapping, I'd probably just duplicate the whole channel and like pitch the MIDI down an octave. So I could just go here. I'd go lead low, or in this case, low lead. Chuck on the pitch device on the second version and go down the octave here. Mix it a bit quieter. Sounds fantastic to me now. Of course, we could group these together, maybe give it like a little bit of, I'm going to call this lead group. Give it maybe like a tiny bit of multi-band compression, not like the OTT kind in Serum, but just a little bit of subtle from Ableton. That's sounding fantastic. Now we've picked a good sound, we've composed well with it, we've then created a new sound from scratch, added a bit of movement to it. Now the last optional step here is to add a second counter melody. This can be a nice way to just add a bit of like motion in the arrangement of your track. So I'm just going to quickly load up Serum here and just draw in a pretty rough and dirty counter melody with one of those other presets that I have. So I'm going to grab Singularion, I think, is quite a nice one with a nice bit of movement. Yeah. So I wonder what it would sound like if we just sort of did a 1 or 2 note thing. I'm just going to jam it out on my keyboard for now. Yeah, something like this. So notice how that last note is right on the 3 there. Maybe I'll do one of these notes on the 4 here. But maybe down the octave just to sort of give it a bit of space. Maybe we will shorten that up a bit. Something like this. We'll go. Yeah, maybe it's a bit earlier like this. Yeah, that'll sound good. Not quite that late. And what I'm going to do is just tweak this particular preset to make the decay a little more rapid. Yeah, that's the perfect counter melody, just to make it blend in with the sound of this lead, right? I do want to add a little more noise to this lead. I think I may move it out of the lead group, of the filter group rather. Maybe not. I just need to open up the filter a bit. And that's sounding pretty good to me there, to be honest. I'm going to add a bit of the same reverb we're using. I'm going to add the same sidechain we're using. Sounds pretty good. And here's the final result. I'm just going to call this lead 2. We could even copy this over here, have this up there. that's how you make melodic techno leads, guys. Plenty of creative options in there. But if you do need some inspiration, make sure to grab our free Nebula melodic techno leads pack right below in the description. If you've watched to the end of this tutorial, congratulations, because you're going to be ahead of 90% of producers who probably didn't, and you're going to be making way better leads than them. As always, grab that in the description, subscribe, like, and all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.